Welcome to Broadcasting Seeds, where the strange, the unexplained, and the downright eerie come to life. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, and today is day one of something very special. We're counting down to Halloween with a week of episodes that are going to take you to the edge of what you thought you knew about the world. I mean, we all love a good Halloween scare, right? But trust me, what we've got lined up this week goes way beyond plastic skeletons and pumpkin spice everything. This isn't your average Halloween week. We're kicking things off with a deep dive into the dark origins of Halloween. That's right. The spooky season we all know and love didn't just pop out of nowhere with costumes and candy. No, its roots go back thousands of years to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, where people believed the barrier between our world and the spirit world was at its weakest. Ghosts, spirits, maybe even a demon or two. If you were living back then, you'd be lighting fires, wearing disguises, and offering up food to make sure the spirits passed by your door. But that's just the start. Over the centuries, Halloween evolved, first into All Hallows Eve, then into the candy-laden holiday we know today. Yet, even in modern times, there are whispers that Halloween is still more than it seems. Some conspiracy theorists claim the night is a cover for secret rituals performed by hidden societies. Others say the government uses the chaos of the night to mask its own paranormal investigations or even supernatural containment efforts. Creepy, right? All week long, we're peeling back the layers on Halloween, cryptids, haunted military bases, government cover-ups, you name it, we're going there. We're going to dive into the myths and expose the truths that might just change the way you look at October 31st. So buckle up, folks. Things are about to get real strange. Make sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review, especially if you make it through the week without checking under your bed. Let's kick things off with the dark origins of Halloween. And trust me, after today's episode, you'll never look at this holiday the same way again. Ready to step through the veil? Let's go. Let's rewind the clock a few thousand years and set the stage in ancient Celtic lands. Think Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Wales. The harvest season is ending. The days are growing shorter, and the nights are creeping in earlier. There's a chill in the air that feels, well, different. And with that change comes Samhain, pronounced Samhain, a festival marking the transition from summer's warmth to the dark, cold days of winter. But this was no ordinary celebration. Samhain was believed to be the time when the veil between the living and the dead was at its weakest, allowing the spirits of the dead to cross over into the land of the living. Now, let's be honest. If you lived in a time where crops failing could mean starvation and medical care was about as effective as a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, the thought of ghosts roaming around probably wasn't all that comforting. The Celts were practical people, and they took no chances when it came to the spirit world. On the night of Samhain, massive bonfires were lit, often on hilltops, to ward off evil spirits. These fires weren't just for warmth. They were spiritual beacons, meant to protect the community from wandering ghosts and perhaps something a little darker. But it wasn't all bad. The Celts believed that not all spirits were malevolent. Some were ancestors, long gone but returning to visit their families, so there was an element of respect and even reverence involved. To honor these visiting spirits, people left out offerings of food and drink. And if you think that sounds like the origins of modern-day trick-or-treating, you're absolutely right. The Celts believed that by leaving out food, they could appease both the good and the mischievous spirits alike. One of the most fascinating aspects of Samhain is how it blended the physical and the spiritual worlds. It wasn't just about ghosts, it was about everything supernatural. Celtic lore is full of stories about fairies, witches, and other creatures that would come out during Samhain, when the rules of our world didn't quite apply. You see, to them, Samhain wasn't just a festival. It was a time when the boundary between life and death, between the known and the unknown, became porous. Now, let's talk about those costumes. Today, Halloween costumes are all about being fun or spooky, but back then, it wasn't just for show. People wore disguises during Samhain to confuse any spirits that might want to cause them harm. If a spirit saw you looking all ghoulish, it might mistake you for one of its own and pass you by without incident. Smart, right? It's like blending in with the locals when you're in an unfamiliar neighborhood, except in this case, the locals are ghosts. So, what does all this have to do with Halloween as we know it today? Well, as you'll see, almost everything. Samhain laid the groundwork for what would eventually become Halloween, but more than that, it gave us our fascination with the supernatural. This idea of a night when the dead walk among us has never really left our collective imagination, even after thousands of years. And while we may not light bonfires to keep spirits at bay anymore, we still decorate our homes with things like skeletons and ghosts to acknowledge, if only playfully, that this is a night where the rules are different. Now that you've got a sense of where Halloween comes from, let's get into how it evolved. Next up, we're going to explore how the church tried to make sense of this pagan festival. So, we've established that Samhain was a night where the supernatural reigned supreme, but what happens when a pagan tradition bumps up against the unstoppable force of Christianity? Well, like many things in history, the answer is a mix of adaptation, rebranding, and, let's be honest, a little bit of forced conversion. By the time Christianity began to spread through Celtic lands, the church had a big task on its hands. You see, it wasn't just enough to preach the gospel. They had to find a way to make Christianity appealing to people who had been practicing their own rituals and traditions for centuries. And Samhain? That was a big one. It wasn't something people would give up easily, especially when they believed it protected them from evil spirits and connected them with their ancestors. So what's a church to do? Rather than outright banish Samhain, they decided to rebrand it. Around the 9th century, Pope Gregory IV moved the Christian holiday of All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day, to November 1st. This was a strategic move. All Saints' Day was a time to honor the saints and martyrs, so what better way to draw people away from their pagan celebrations than by creating a holy day that did, well, sort of the same thing. The night before became All Hallows' Eve, eventually shortened to Halloween. Here's where it gets interesting. The church didn't just replace Samhain with All Hallows' Eve, it incorporated some of its elements. This was common in Christian efforts to convert pagan populations. Take what's already there, give it a Christian spin, and suddenly you've got a new holiday that's familiar but also aligned with Christian values. So the idea of honoring the dead was retained, but instead of wandering spirits, people were encouraged to focus on the saints and the souls of the faithful departed. But let's not pretend the transition was seamless. In many rural areas, people continued to celebrate the old ways for centuries. Even as Christianity spread, elements of Samhain clung to the festivities. The bonfires continued, though now they might be lit in honor of saints rather than spirits. People still dressed in costumes, but now they might be saints, angels, or demons. In fact, the concept of souling became popular during this time, where children and the poor would go door to door offering prayers for the dead in exchange for food, a clear precursor to trick-or-treating. As the centuries rolled on, these traditions migrated with people. When Irish and Scottish immigrants came to America in the 19th century, they brought their Halloween customs with them. The pumpkin, now an iconic symbol of Halloween, comes from this period too. The Celts originally carved turnips to ward off evil spirits, but in America, they found that pumpkins were more abundant and, let's be real, a lot easier to carve. Thus, the jack-o'-lantern was born, and with it, Halloween in America started to take shape. But let's not overlook the fact that Halloween still had a dark side. Even in its Christianized form, the night retained an element of danger and fear. People still believed that spirits roamed the earth on this night, even if they now called them demons instead of fairies. In medieval Europe, Halloween wasn't just about celebrating the saints, it was also about confronting the reality of evil in the world. Villagers would light fires to protect themselves from malevolent forces, and churches would hold vigils to keep the darkness at bay. As America grew and evolved, so did Halloween. By the early 20th century, it had transformed from a night of superstition and fear into something more playful. Kids in costumes, parties, and community events began to dominate the holiday. But even as Halloween became more fun and lighthearted, that original sense of danger never entirely went away. The idea that Halloween is a night where the ordinary rules don't apply, where the supernatural might just break through, still lingers in the back of our minds. And that, my friends, brings us to the modern era. Halloween, as we know it today, a holiday of costumes, candy, and haunted houses, feels far removed from the Celtic festival of Samhain. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll see that the fear of the unknown, the idea of the dead returning, and the thin veil between worlds are still very much part of the celebration. It's just been dressed up in a more commercialized, family-friendly package. But what if all of this is just a distraction? What if, beneath the candy and costumes, something more sinister is still happening? Some believe that Halloween isn't just a night for fun and games. It's a night when secret societies perform hidden rituals, and the government might even be using the chaos of the holiday to cover up supernatural events. Sound far-fetched? Maybe, but that's what we're going to explore next. Let's fast forward to the 20th century, when Halloween truly began to morph into the holiday we know today. Gone were the ancient rituals of fire and spirit offerings. Well, mostly. In their place came a new wave of traditions that seemed a bit less ominous, but still retained that underlying connection to the supernatural and spooky. However, this transformation wasn't just a natural evolution. It was heavily influenced by marketing, pop culture, and a rising consumerist culture in the United States. At the heart of this shift, costumes, candy, and big business. But first, let's talk about the costumes. In the early days of Halloween in America, the practice of dressing up was more about protecting yourself from spirits, much like the Celts did during Samhain. People believed that if you wore a costume, you could fool the ghosts and ghouls into thinking you were one of them. By the time Halloween hit American shores in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this idea of disguising oneself evolved into a fun activity for kids. Soon, costumes became less about scaring spirits and more about scaring your neighbors, or just looking ridiculous for a laugh. In the 1920s and 1930s, Halloween parades and parties became popular in cities and small towns across America. Costumes, took on a life of their own, becoming more elaborate and creative. It wasn't just about looking scary anymore. Now you could dress as a pirate, a witch, or even something as innocuous as a farmer. And as the years went on, this costume tradition expanded, leading us to the wide array of pop culture-inspired outfits we see today. From superheroes to cartoon characters, Halloween has become a night where the imagination runs wild. But how did we go from leaving food out for wandering spirits to filling pillowcases and plastic buckets with candy? Enter the rise of trick-or-treating, an American tradition that's now synonymous with Halloween. In the early 20th century, communities began organizing Halloween events as a way to keep kids out of trouble. You see, Halloween used to be a night notorious for pranks and mischief. Kids would soap windows, egg houses, and pull all sorts of tricks on their neighbors. In an effort to curb the chaos, towns began encouraging more organized activities, and trick-or-treating was born. By the 1950s, trick-or-treating had become a nationwide phenomenon, and candy companies took notice. Here's where corporate America really enters the picture. Seeing a golden opportunity to cash in on the holiday, candy companies began marketing Halloween-specific products. Individually wrapped candy bars, spooky-themed sweets, and all kinds of sugary delights became the go-to treats for kids going door to door. And let's be honest, Halloween without candy is pretty much unthinkable today. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry with companies churning out everything, from miniature chocolates to pumpkin-shaped gummies in the weeks leading up to October 31st. The commercialization of Halloween doesn't stop at candy. Decorations, costumes, haunted houses, you name it, and there's a company profiting from it. But there's an interesting duality at play here. On the surface, Halloween has become a light-hearted celebration filled with playful scares and sugar highs. But underneath that veneer, the holiday still carries a dark undercurrent. Even as we carve pumpkins and hang fake cobwebs, we're still nodding to the ancient fears of death and the unknown. It's just packaged in a more palatable and profitable form. Now let's talk about the haunted houses. Once a humble way to entertain kids, haunted houses have become big business. Some of the largest haunted attractions in the country draw in tens of thousands of visitors each year with intricate sets, professional actors, and state-of-the-art special effects. The psychology behind haunted houses taps into our primal fear response, giving us just enough of a scare to get our adrenaline pumping, but not so much that we want to bolt for the exit. It's that thrill of facing fear in a controlled environment where we know we're safe. Or are we? And here's where we pivot to something darker. Some believe that these modern Halloween traditions are more than just a fun distraction. What if the emphasis on costumes, candy, and haunted attractions is actually a smokescreen? A way to divert our attention from the original purpose of Halloween, communing with the dead and protecting ourselves from the supernatural. Conspiracy theorists argue that the commercialization of Halloween is deliberate, designed to obscure the true meaning of the holiday, which still retains its connection to the spirit world. Think about it. Every year, we embrace the spooky, the ghostly, the macabre, but only on the surface. What if, beneath all the plastic decorations and candy corn, Halloween remains a night when the boundaries between the living and the dead are as thin as they've ever been? And what if the powers that be, corporations, secret societies, maybe even the government, are using the holiday to hide something far more sinister? Which brings us to the next segment, the conspiracy theory surrounding Halloween. Could this seemingly innocent night be a cover for darker forces at play? We'll dive into that next. Now that we've explored the surface level fun of costumes, candy, and haunted houses, let's take a sharp turn into the darker underbelly of Halloween, where ancient rituals, secret societies, and occult practices still hold sway, at least according to some conspiracy theorists. This is where things start to get really interesting. Some claim that Halloween is more than just a night of lighthearted fun. It's actually a time when secret rituals and hidden ceremonies are performed under the guise of innocent celebration. Let's begin with the idea of secret societies. Throughout history, secretive groups like the Freemasons or the Illuminati have been rumored to conduct mysterious and often sinister rituals behind closed doors. Halloween, with its long-standing association with the spirit world and the supernatural, is said to be a prime time for such groups to gather and perform their most powerful ceremonies. After all, if the veil between worlds is thinnest on this night, wouldn't it make sense that those with knowledge of occult practices would want to take advantage of that? One common thread in these theories is that Halloween night is used by these groups to summon or communicate with otherworldly entities. Rituals involving sacrifice, whether symbolic or literal, are said to be performed in secret locations with the goal of gaining power, insight, or control. These rituals are often tied to the idea of invoking ancient deities or spirits that are believed to hold great influence over the physical world. The spooky imagery we see on Halloween, witches, demons, and ghosts, may not just be for show. Some believe it's a reflection of the real forces being called upon during these secret gatherings. A particularly chilling conspiracy ties Halloween to human sacrifice. According to certain fringe groups, the ancient practice of offering up sacrifices to appease gods or spirits didn't disappear with the rise of Christianity. It simply went underground. These theorists claim that modern Halloween festivities are a cover for rituals that involve human sacrifice, often disguised as tragic accidents or disappearances. You might have heard the urban legends of people vanishing on Halloween only to turn up dead under mysterious circumstances. While there's no solid evidence to support these claims, the theories persist, feeding into our collective fear of what could be happening behind the scenes on this seemingly innocent night. But the theories don't stop with occult practices and secret societies. Some take it even further, claiming that Halloween is not just a night for human rituals, but for otherworldly events as well. Paranormal activity is said to spike on Halloween, with reports of increased ghost sightings, poltergeist activity, and even UFO encounters. Could it be that Halloween's ancient connection to the spirit world has left an indelible mark on the fabric of reality, making it easier for these strange occurrences to happen? Or, as some conspiracy theorists suggest, could the government be using the chaos of Halloween night to conduct its own secret experiments? There's a theory that the government, or more specifically shadowy agencies within it, are deeply involved in paranormal research and experimentation. Halloween, with its inherent atmosphere of fear and darkness, is seen as the perfect time to conduct these experiments unnoticed. Think about it. Everyone is distracted by parties, costumes, and trick-or-treating. The streets are filled with people in disguise, and the odd and the unusual are expected. If the government were to, say, investigate a supernatural phenomenon, contain a dangerous entity, or even conduct experiments on human subjects, Halloween would be the ideal cover. Who's going to notice one more strange occurrence on a night when everything seems strange? This theory extends into the realm of alien abductions as well. Some believe that the spike in paranormal activity on Halloween isn't limited to ghosts and ghouls. It includes UFO sightings and alien encounters. Halloween night, they argue, is used by extraterrestrial beings to carry out abductions and experiments on unsuspecting humans. And once again, the timing is perfect. With so much focus on the spooky and the bizarre, who's going to believe someone claiming they were abducted by aliens on Halloween? Then there's the even more extreme idea that Halloween itself, as we know it today, was deliberately commercialized to distract us from these darker realities. By turning the holiday into a fun, family-friendly event, complete with candy and costumes, the real meaning of the night, the time when the boundary between worlds is thinnest, has been obscured. Some suggest that the corporate and media push to commercialize Halloween as part of a larger agenda to keep the public unaware of the true nature of what's happening. The theories are wild, no doubt, but they play on our deepest fears. Fears that perhaps there's more to Halloween than meets the eye. Whether or not there's any truth to these conspiracies, they certainly add an extra layer of creepiness to a holiday that's already steeped in the eerie and the unknown. But we're not done yet. Our next segment will take this even further by exploring how some people believe that Halloween is more than just a night for rituals. It's a cover for government agencies that might be investigating and even containing real supernatural events. All right, we've gone through the origins of Halloween, explored its evolution, and peeked into the world of secret societies and occult rituals. Now, let's crank things up a notch and dive into the idea that Halloween might actually be a cover for government activity, specifically government cover-ups and investigations into the supernatural. And before you roll your eyes, let's remember, stranger things have happened, and conspiracy theorists love to point out that what was once dismissed as crazy often turns out to have a grain of truth. Let's start with the idea that Halloween, with all its chaotic energy, is the perfect night for government agencies to operate unnoticed. On Halloween, people expect to see strange things. People in costumes, spooky decorations, and odd behavior are all part of the fun. So, if you were, say, a government agency tasked with investigating or even containing supernatural activity, wouldn't you take advantage of the distraction? That's the core of this theory, that Halloween's focus on the spooky and bizarre provides excellent cover for more serious and much more dangerous operations. The government agencies most commonly implicated in these theories are the usual suspects, organizations like the CIA, FBI, and even DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. These groups are often tied to classified experiments, including projects that some believe delve into the paranormal. The theory goes that on Halloween, while everyone is distracted by the festivities, these agencies are conducting their most sensitive work. They might be investigating paranormal phenomena, like hauntings, demonic activity, or even cryptid sightings, all under the cover of the holiday's natural weirdness. But it gets weirder. Some conspiracy theorists claim that the government not only investigates the paranormal on Halloween, but actually contains or suppresses supernatural entities. Think about it. Halloween is steeped in the idea of spirits and otherworldly beings crossing over into our world. What if the government knows more about this than they're letting on? Could there be teams, covert units within the military or intelligence community tasked with handling these supernatural threats? This would make Halloween not just a time for rituals and celebrations, but also a night when dangerous, possibly otherworldly forces are at their most active, and the government is the only thing standing between us and them. There are even stories, though they often veer into urban legend territory, about entire towns being quarantined on Halloween due to paranormal activity. In these stories, an inexplicable event occurs, something supernatural that can't be easily explained. The government swoops in, cordons off the area, and the public is told it's a gas leak or a chemical spill or some other cover story. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, shadowy agencies are working to contain whatever force has broken through the veil between worlds. These legends often have little verifiable proof, but they persist, especially in small, rural communities where stories of government overreach and supernatural happenings often overlap. And it's not just ghost stories. UFO sightings also seem to spike around Halloween, and some believe that's no coincidence. The theory here is that extraterrestrial activity is linked to the thinning of the veil between worlds. On Halloween night, when the boundary between our world and the unknown is at its weakest, not only are spirits able to cross over, but so too are beings from other dimensions or other planets, depending on which version of the theory you subscribe to. Some even suggest that these entities use Halloween night to conduct their own experiments, taking advantage of the confusion and chaos of the holiday. One particularly eerie version of this theory involves the infamous Area 51. As we all know, Area 51 has long been at the center of UFO and alien conspiracy theories, but some say that on Halloween night the facility ramps up its efforts to contain the supernatural, whether it's extraterrestrial beings, recovered alien technology, or even interdimensional entities that have managed to slip through the cracks. According to these theories, Halloween is the one night a year when Area 51's activity reaches a fever pitch, as the government works to keep whatever they've been hiding under wraps. Of course, this all sounds like something out of a sci-fi thriller, but consider this. Many of the paranormal and cryptid stories we've heard throughout the years, from Bigfoot sightings to UFO encounters, often happen in isolated areas away from the public eye. Could Halloween be the perfect opportunity for the government to investigate these sightings more closely? Some even suggest that agencies like the FBI have paranormal divisions dedicated to tracking and studying unexplained phenomena, and that Halloween is when these divisions are most active. And it's not just about containment. Some theorists believe that the government is actively experimenting with the paranormal, using classified projects to tap into supernatural powers, perhaps even trying to weaponize them. This is where we veer into the realm of black projects, highly classified government initiatives that operate outside of public scrutiny. The theory goes that the government has been experimenting with things like psychic abilities, telekinesis, and even portals to other dimensions, and that Halloween is a prime time for conducting these experiments. As wild as these ideas might sound, it's worth considering how much of the paranormal and supernatural has remained hidden from public view. If we're willing to believe that the government has secrets, why wouldn't some of those secrets involve the supernatural? After all, the unknown is something that has always fascinated and terrified us in equal measure. And on Halloween, when the rules of reality seem a little less solid, it's not hard to imagine that the government might be using the night to do some investigating of its own. So, what does this all mean for Halloween as we know it? Maybe nothing. Maybe Halloween is just a fun night for costumes and candy. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a night when the world we think we know is a little less certain, and the forces that lurk in the shadows are a little more active. Whether it's secret societies conducting occult rituals or government agencies investigating supernatural activity, Halloween remains a night full of mystery and intrigue. And that, my friends, is the beauty of this holiday. It lets us embrace the unknown, even if only for one night. But as we've explored today, the unknown might be closer and more real than we think. Well, that wraps up day one of Broadcasting Seeds' Shadows Unveiled series. We've taken a deep dive into the dark origins of Halloween, peeled back the layers of its ancient Celtic roots, explored how the church transformed it, and ventured into the wild world of conspiracy theories. From secret societies to government cover-ups, it's clear that Halloween holds more mystery than meets the eye. But we're just getting started. Tomorrow on day 2, we're diving into something that will give you chills. Haunted military bases and secret facilities. We'll explore real-life paranormal occurrences reported by soldiers. Everything from ghost sightings to unexplained disappearances. We're talking about haunted barracks, eerie sounds echoing through deserted hallways, and strange activity on some of the most secure military installations in the world. These aren't just ghost stories. These are first-hand accounts from those who serve on the front lines. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, share this episode with your friends, and leave a review. Let's spread these seeds of curiosity as we keep unraveling the strange, the unexplained, and the downright creepy. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the truth is scarier than the stories. I'm Bennett Tanton, and this has been Broadcasting Seeds. Catch you tomorrow as we explore the haunted halls of military history.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared, hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe all my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me away cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they fill in the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are fading now. All my life is fading now. All my life is fading now. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All my life is fading now. All my life is fading now. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Trapped in my nightmares.